Good morning, Eddie. First thing, can we check on Joelinton, please? Wasn't involved against Ipswich because of an injury. How is he, and will he play again this season?
The likelihood is it'll be difficult, I think, but with Joe, you'd never rule him out. I think he's so motivated to try and come back, but a bit of a discomfort in his knee last week, just before the game, so he's sought a specialist opinion. That opinion wasn't nothing serious, but he needed a period of rest. He's now in Brazil. And so we'll wait and see if we can get him back before the end of the season, but the likelihood is probably not.
Is this a completely new injury, or is it a recurrence of something that he had previously?
Yeah, it's. I wouldn't say it's a new injury, but it's related to the knee that he had recently. So it just wasn't feeling 100%.
Last week, your selection for the starting 11 included Joe Willock in place of Joelinton. He's had a tough couple of years, hasn't he, with injuries, but 2 seasons ago when you finished 4th, he was a big reason why you got into the Champions League. But the decision to pick him over other options that you had, I suppose, shows that you still have a lot of faith in Joe Willock.
Yeah, we still have a lot of faith in Joe, and I think a like-for-like replacement, really. Does a lot of his best work on the left-hand side of the pitch, as Joelinton does. So for me, he's got goal-scoring instincts. He's a very attack-minded player, very quick and athletic, a really good ball carrier. And let's not forget, Joe's had some important contributions this season, most notably really in the Carabao Cup, where he scored some big goals for us. But also my mind goes back to the Arsenal game at the Emirates, where I thought he was excellent that day. So no doubting his quality. Yes, probably needs to feel that run of games to be at his very best. Hopefully he can show that.
How tough has it been, do you think, for him and probably your other 2 central midfielders? Because for so long, for much of this season, it's been the 3 that have done so well in there, and Joe Willock, Lewis Miley, Sean Longstaff have had to be patient. Yeah,
difficult for them, no doubt. I think they'll be looking at the midfield, seeing it's functioned really, really well, which is a good thing, of course, when you're looking at it, but also from their perspective, you're wanting an opportunity. So it can be difficult, but I think that's where your professionalism needs to be at its highest level. I think your training levels need to be really good. I have to pay compliment to them all, because I think they have done that, and they've kept their heads in the right place, and they're going to be needed, because you never know when the game's in the balance, and you look to the bench, you need top quality players, and I thought Louis came on and did really well last week, so that was great to see.
Did Sven Botman come through his appearance last week okay?
Yeah, he did. Trained again this week, looks good. So, big positive to get Sven back.
And finally, looking ahead to Brighton on Sunday, this predates your arrival at the club, but since promotion 8 years ago, Newcastle teams have tended to struggle to play well and often get results against Brighton. Now, I think at St James's this season, you were unlucky not to get the results against them, but why do you think they are such a difficult team to play against?
Yeah, I think always have a tough game against Brighton. We've had some good results at St James's Park historically. Not so much this year. The 2 games we lost, I thought, were both really tight games. They could have gone either way. We fell on the wrong side of them, unfortunately. But I think at Brighton, they're a very good team. It's a good atmosphere for them. I also think it's good for the away team. It's a lovely pitch always. It's a good environment. So we would back ourselves against anybody. But certainly we know we're going to have to play at our very best, because it's never an easy game there. And, congratulations to what they've done over recent seasons, because I think they've become a harder team to beat, and certainly their style of play is very attractive.
And lastly, how important is it in this final month of the season that you keep things in your own hands if you can? The result, Nottingham Forest losing to Brentford on Thursday night, I guess helped with that, because you've maintained your position in the table, but you want it to be in your control, don't you? Yeah,
I think that's absolutely where you want to be. You want to be in control of your destiny, and I think with 4 games to go we are, but we're very aware that it can change in one round of games. So there's no let up for us. I think keeping absolute focus, being really consistent with our training, as the players have been now for a long period of time. Our run of results has been very impressive, but what we don't want it to do is to tail off right at the end. So tough fixtures to come, none more so than this first game, but we believe in the team.
Thanks, Razor. Nick, Sky Sports. Firstly, Eddie, how are you doing? I mean, you've had a first game since returning. Do you feel back to full fitness yourself?
I'd say I'm getting there. Yeah, it's been a positive week for me. I feel better every day. I've woke up feeling a little bit stronger. I wouldn't say at my 100% fitness, so I probably won't be starting myself on Saturday, but I'm getting there.
We were talking about Brighton's kind of record against you there. I mean, you mentioned the tough games ahead. How do you see that Champions League race after last start? I mean, did you watch the game last night?
Yeah, I tend to watch a lot of football, so yes, I did watch the game. I think it's going to be tight, and I think it's going to go down right to the end. I think you look at the teams in and around us, it's full of top quality teams, and we've got 4 games. We can only focus on ourselves. We can't look at other teams and other results, and we've never done that. So it's about making sure we're prepared for Brighton.
That's great. And in terms of Anthony Gordon, I mean, his knee situation seems to be ongoing. How frustrated is he, and are you expecting any progress with that? Yeah,
I don't think it's too bad. Of course, that was last week. He's had a full week's training this week, and he's looked better physically, I'd say. So the main thing for him is to try and now, if he's 100% fit, focus on his performance and make sure he's at the levels that he has been for the majority of the season. He's a massive player for us, and we're going to need him.
That's great. And in terms of, just finally, William Osula got his first goal last weekend. How encouraged are you by his progress?
Yeah, doing well. I think the goal you could see early on this week gave him a big lift, big confidence boost. I think he's trained pretty consistently all season, and he's very enthusiastic, very driven. There's still work to do on his game, as there is with every player, but he's certainly going in the right direction.
Amazing. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Andy?
Well, Eddie, Dan said to us after the Ipswich game that you said you'd take it easy and train, then within 30 seconds you'd stopped everything and you got into them. How hard is it taking it easier for you?
Yeah, well, I sort of know the moment he was talking about, and just instincts took over, and I think it was a good thing for me because I was straight back in and trying to act normally. But certainly this week I feel a lot better. So training for me has been pretty normal. My work routine's pretty normal. So yeah, I feel good. And I think it's important that I am myself, and there's no letting.
You're up for Manager of the Month. How's that work if you win it? Do you share it with Jay? So what's going to happen with that?
Well, yeah, I don't know. I've not looked at that at all, so I've got no idea. I'm sure JT will probably want the trophy.
We'll ask him in the next few days if it's announced. Just mentioned Will Osula. He's obviously a really popular lad, not just in the dressing room, amongst the fans. Have you ever met, I suppose, a more exuberant character? And on a serious level, how much is that going to help him to try and produce consistent form on the pitch, do you think, his popularity?
Yeah, I always encourage the players to be themselves, and Will is very much himself. And hopefully the supporters take to that personality, and I think they have with Will, and it's great to see. The love and affection between player and supporter is so important. He will feel that love, and that will help his game. He is that character during the week. He's bright, he's bubbly, he's enthusiastic, he's passionate. All the things really that they're really positive things, and that will help his career. I think for us it's about being consistent with our development of him, and we've tried to do that and be there for him, work with him, because he's got rare skills. Not everyone has his ability and his attributes, so it's about honing those skills and making sure we continue to get him ready for the rigours of the Premier League.
Just finally, win against Brighton on Sunday would make it 20 Premier League wins for Newcastle this season. What does that say about how consistent this side has been? Because I don't think the Newcastle United team have recorded 20 in the Premier League since 2003, the days of Sir Bobby.
Well, it'd be a good mark to hit. I think for us, we go into every game trying to win. I think we're very positive in our approach. We try to be. Hopefully that has some strengths. I'm sure it has some weaknesses in there as well, but we don't shy away from who we want to be, and it's the challenge is to win as many games as possible, and that will never change.
Thank you. Nisha? Morning, Eddie. Jacob Murphy and Harvey Barnes have been nominated for Player of the Month. I think they're probably two players that fans might not have expected the impact that they've made through the season when the season first started. How do you think they've just reached the heights that they have this season?
Very different in their sort of how their seasons have unfolded. I think Jacob's really grown into his position. I think he's developed real strengths and real strengths the team's needed. So his crossing ability, I think, first and foremost, has been a massive strength for us. Playing a right footer on the right hand side brings real characteristics that I think we've needed. The ability to cross early behind teams' back line. He's built a really good relationship with Alex. He's contributed a number of assists for him, which is great to see. And I just think his confidence levels have grown from what he's delivered. And I don't think there's any doubting the two players' abilities. Certainly not internally anyway. Not from us as coaches who get to see them every day. And I'm really pleased that Harvey's had the opportunity to showcase his skills. He's just a brilliant finisher, a brilliant goal scorer. And every team needs those players on the pitch. So I'm delighted with their progress, and they're going to be important in these last 4 games.
And just finally from me, the transfer stories have well and truly started with a few games to go. How much work is actually happening on that front behind the scenes currently?
Well, I think even though we haven't signed a lot of players in the last few windows, the work's never stopped, and the work will never stop. So that goes on behind the scenes relentlessly. Of course, I take more prominence towards the sort of the windows opening. So, I'm doing a lot of the work at the moment.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nisha. Okay, Rittens, we will include Sundays at the end, so please just factor that in. We'll start with Damien Spellman.
Eddie, such a lot of your success this season has been as a result of finding that balance in your midfield. You've said there that Joe is perhaps the closest to Joe Linton in terms of replacement. But what do the likes of Lewis, Miley and Sean Longstaff have to do to work you into your thinking for these last 4 games?
Well, certainly they don't need to change from being themselves, because I think individually they're both high class players and they bring something different and unique. And I think when you saw Louis came on the pitch on Saturday, very calm, composed, made some really good decisions on the ball. So I think he's developing really, really well. I'm very happy with where his individual game is at. But you can never copy anybody. And we encourage him to be the individual that he is. And it's the same with Sean. Sean brings unique skills to the team. I mean, his tactical understanding and his delivery of what we've asked him to do historically has been of the very highest level. He's got an important goal in him. And I just say both players have to be ready and in their best physical condition. I think that's the biggest challenge when you don't play, is can you be physically ready to execute what the team needs you to do from minute one when you potentially haven't played for a while. I think that's a challenge, but it's all based on your professionalism, and those two boys are right up there as the best pros in the squad.
Thank you. We'll go to Ian, Gary and Louise, please. Ian?
Good morning, Eddie. Do you believe there's such a thing as a bogey team? Because I suspect a lot of fans would think Brighton is yours, or do you go into that game with past results and total irrelevance?
I don't believe in that. I do think there can be sometimes strange results and reoccurring strange results within the club's fortunes. It happens where you come up against an opponent that you don't tend to go up against them very well. But I don't think that's necessarily the case here. I think the 2 games we've had against Brighton this season, I think it could easily have gone our way, especially the first game. Maybe not so much the FA Cup game. I don't think we were particularly great that day. But the league game, I thought we were really good and unfortunate to lose. I think every game in isolation is a very different game, and this one will be. It'll be a very tough game for us. They're a very good team. They've got dangerous wide players. Danny Welbeck's having another brilliant season. So I really respect their team a lot. But as I said before, we back ourselves against anybody, and we'll certainly go there full of confidence.
Football's a game of fine margins. Does it give you any advantage, however slight, that your remaining 4 fixtures are on a Sunday? So that you go into the games knowing what your rivals' results are, or some of your rivals' results?
I don't know. That's one to probably talk about afterwards. I don't know. I think if there's any advantage really. I think we know what we have to do anyway. We have to win. We have to win each game. So I don't know if playing on a Sunday is going to help us.
Thanks, Ian. Gary?
Morning, Eddie. Just going back to the FA Cup game, obviously Anthony got sent off that game, ended up missing Wembley, and he's got injured. It's arguably been probably the toughest period of his career, despite the success of the team. How hard has that been for him, and how have you helped him through that, or haven't you had to?
I think Anthony's a very, very strong character, and very independent player. Yes, every player needs support. Every player needs a good environment to work in and needs to feel confident in that environment. I'd say maybe some players need more communication and direct dialogue more than others. I'd say Anthony's one that maybe because of his strength of character, because of his strong belief in himself, maybe needs slightly less. But I'm sure this has been a difficult period for him, because I think any time you're out and you're missing games, especially when you're fit and available to play, which he was initially, is a huge frustration. And especially when it's bittersweet, because you're seeing the team do well without you, which is great. But of course, you want to be there yourself contributing, and that's a difficult emotion to deal with as well. But I think all he can do is focus on himself and his game and make sure he's at the very, very best physical levels and technical and tactical levels. And then with his ability and his quality, he can make a difference for us.
And obviously, Harvey's been in fine form. He's struggling to get back in the team at the moment, but does he still have a huge part to play in, securing hopefully Champions League football for the club?
Yeah, of course, it's undoubted. Every player within the squad has huge power to help us. So there's no doubting Anthony's qualities. He's an outstanding player. Of course, the team's been consistent without him, and that's always a challenge. But we need those players knocking on the door, not necessarily physically, but you get what I'm trying to say, to play, and that competition inspires everybody. So that's probably something we haven't had enough, but with Sven's return and Anthony's return, suddenly the squad's looking a bit stronger.
Thanks, Gary. Go to Louise Taylor, Luke Edwards and Craig Hall, please.
Hi, Eddie. Would you agree that the single most important decision in a multitude of decisions you've made this season is switching Sandro Tonali to that really number 6 central midfield role on November the 30th against Crystal Palace in the Premier League?
Yeah, I think the balance of the team is hugely important. That that potentially helped us just find a better balance within our midfield. Personally, I think the most important decisions you ever make in this position is on recruitment. The players that you bring into the club. If we hadn't brought Sandro into the club in the first place, then we wouldn't, have his skills and abilities in the team. So signing the right players is always, for me, the fundamentally the most important thing. And then you hope to be able to mould the team and the squad to be successful.
Mm-hmm. And in a wider sense, I mean, you talked in the post about how you loved Arsene Wenger's Arsenal teams, and particularly the Cesc Fabregas, Jack Wilshere incarnations. How do you think you've evolved as a manager in your thinking and your philosophy about football, if at all?
Yeah, I think it's always changing. I think it has to change because the game changes so quickly. I mean, the game is unrecognisable from the one that I first started managing in. And I'm sure in 10 years' time it will look totally different again. So you have to be mouldable, flexible. But I do believe the sort of the core principles running through the job have never changed and will never change. So it's sort of a mixture between both. You have to be adaptable and flexible, but certain things that you really believe in, I think you have to be strong with.
Thank you.
Okay, Luke.
Alexander Isak has scored 20. Oh, sorry, Lee, I forgot my microphone. Alexander Isak has scored 26 goals this season. Is it fair to say that his form has petered out a little bit in the last few weeks?
Well, he's still scoring important goals for us, and that's never lost on me. None more so than the penalty. Yes, you always probably expect to score a penalty, but that was a key moment in the game at 0-0 against Ipswich, where we needed him to be really cool and do his job and score the goal, and he did. I'd say we probably haven't found a way to get him involved in the game as much. Certainly against Ipswich we didn't. Second half I thought he came alive to a degree. I think there's more to come from Alex than he's shown maybe in recent weeks, but I think we're working towards that. You've got to remember he's had a couple of little niggles within his groin that then limited his ability to train. I think he's trained fine this week. He's looked good, and he's a difference maker, and we need him at 100%.
I know you've been asked this several times before, but it's going to keep being asked as we head towards the summer.
Yep.
His new contract talks, presumably, as far as you're concerned, we heard it from Darren Eales, Alexander Isak isn't for sale and will be remaining at Newcastle United.
What's the question?
Is Alexander Isak not for sale? Short and sweet.
Yeah, well, I think he's not for sale from my perspective. I want to build a squad. I want the strongest squad possible for next season. There's a lot to look forward to here, hopefully. End of the season is going to be crucial for us. I feel we have a strong squad, and I think if we can add some players for the first time in a few windows, that will make a massive, massive difference for us. So that's what I'm focusing on, not the other way around.
Thank you. Go to Craig, Lee Ryder and Martin Hardy, please.
Morning, Eddie. From your position, can you give us an insight and some detail as to the difference between Champions League and not Champions League when it comes to budget, to the ability to retain players, to give them the contracts they want? Just how big a difference is it now between being in that competition and not?
I probably prefer to focus it on a different sort of train of thought, really. Yes, we know where we want to be, but the focus from the players has to be that's where we want to be, rather than the consequences, because the consequences aren't helpful. It's the squad as one focusing on what we need to do. And I think that's where the players need to be. They don't need to hear me talk about other things. Our aim and our wish and our goal is to try and get there, and we have 4 games to get over the line.
When you spoke to us last week after the game, you quoted a stat that the team had won 20 from 26. I thought you were mistaken. I didn't actually realise, I don't know if others had, that you'd been on such a good run.
I thought you were going to tell me I was wrong.
It was only last month in here, at the start of April, I went back and checked. We were talking about the team being inconsistent. Did we get that wrong, and have you sort of revised your opinion of what consistency means? I think then you were talking about the level of performance more so.
Certainly, early season we were inconsistent. I think I was very open and honest with my thoughts at the time. I was disappointed with how we started the season, and there's various reasons behind that. But I do think we have been consistent, and I think the beauty of it is we've had a couple of difficult games in there in that run. The 6 that we didn't win, but we've usually found a way just to navigate our way back to good form again, which is a huge strength. I'd prefer to probably answer that question at the end of the season, because if we're inconsistent between now and the end of the season, then all that hard work really falls away. So we've got 4 games to keep our form.
Thank you. Lee?
Eddie, on Sean Longstaff, he hasn't started a Premier League game since Brentford away, I think, in December. How would you keep him motivated and make him believe that he has got a future here at Newcastle?
Yeah, again, I don't look at it that way. I don't think I have to motivate him. I shouldn't have to motivate him. He should motivate himself. He's here representing the club that he loves, so there should be no issue on motivation. He has to be ready to take a chance when it comes. I think any train of thought that I can't do that for all 25 players. But Sean is motivated. He's been brilliant behind the scenes. He is training well. And he's got undoubted qualities, as I said earlier. So Sean has a contract for next year. So the control is very much in his hands in terms of what he wants to do with his long-term future. And we're certainly delighted to have him within our players.
And the window opens on June the 1st for 10 days, I think. Knowing what you've said in the past about wanting to get people in time for pre-season so they can understand your methods, is that a good thing in the Eddie Howe sort of transfer playbook?
What's that? We get them...
The window opening on June the 1st?
Well, yeah, it's great the window opens on June the 1st. The challenge is for us is to sign players early June. But it doesn't work like that. I hope the reality is, but it rarely works like that. I think it gets harder and harder to sign really good players. So I'd rather sign the right player than settle for someone and get them in early. So let's wait and see. It's very difficult to predict what's going to happen.
can I just get a quick update on Callum Wilson? Obviously, we got told his contract was up. Is he getting another contract? Is he still in your plans going forward?
Well, he's very much in my plans going forward. We have 4 games to go, and he's a huge part of that. I think he's looked better and better in recent weeks. You have to understand, Callum probably has been going through a pre-season sort of in the shop window, as in on the pitch, which is very difficult to do. But he needed the sort of the training and the game exposure to get back to his very best form. I think he's getting there now. I think physically I see the Callum Wilson of old. So good signs for him, and he stayed fit for a long period of time, which has been brilliant to see. And I think, look, on his long-term future, let's wait and see. Let's wait and see how he performs and how he continues to look.
Okay, we've got 5 years to get through in about 4 minutes. So if you knock it down to single questions, please, we'll go to Martin, to Scott and Chris, please.
Hi, Eddie. You've spoken about Alex and Anthony today, and they've both been linked with other clubs. How good are they, and how important is it that they are here next season and seasons after that?
Yeah, we want to keep our best players, Martin. I think I've made that very clear. That's not just the wish from me, that's the wish from everyone at the club. Don't have a crystal ball. I can't sit here and say what's going to happen. I can only say what my determination is, and it's to build a team, the best team possible. And to do that, I think you can't consistently lose your best players.
Thank you. Scott.
Hi, Eddie. A little bit off the back of Lee, I guess. We all know last season Newcastle had to sell ahead of the PSR deadline. We all know what happened there. The club, we think, don't have to this time, but there's very strong suggestions that some Premier League clubs do. To the best of your knowledge, are Newcastle in a financial position where they could maybe take advantage of that? And to what extent does that, if you like, new deadline and new need for clubs to sell mean a club like Newcastle has to factor that into their transfer policy and when they look to sign and what they look to do?
There's a lot in that question.
Not a quick one, Lee, sorry.
No, it's not a quick one, but I think I've forgotten most of it. So I think the best way to answer that is I made it clear last year there's almost 2 transfer windows now. There's the PSR deadline plays a huge role for clubs, both those clubs with PSR issues and those without, because those without may potentially look to try and sign players, take advantage of other clubs, as clubs did to us last year, quite rightly. So it's a really interesting dynamic, and one that we're very aware of, and we'll try to use to our advantage if we can. But certainly I can't go into sort of the details of that. But no doubt we've got people at the club that are working very hard behind the scenes on it.
Thanks, Scott. Chris?
Morning, Eddie. Bruno Fernandes has been fouled 99 times in the Premier League this season, which is 30 more than any other player. First of all, what does that say about him and his ability to win fouls and the way that he I suppose, manoeuvres his body? But also, do you think he gets enough protection as well?
Yeah, Bruno's a very unique player in that sense. I think he almost draws the physical contact on. He's very comfortable receiving the ball under pressure, which is a great thing, I think, as a midfield player. Well, I'm always telling the midfield players you must always want the ball in every moment, in every situation. No matter how tightly marked you are, you've got to be able and prepared to receive the ball to help your teammate. I think because of that style that he has, he is fouled a lot. And I think those numbers don't surprise me. It's something I've been aware of for a while. I think it's a challenge for Bruno because referees will be aware of those stats as well. I think the majority of those for me have been fouls. Does he get enough protection? I don't think he's been on the end of too many what I call dangerous tackles, maybe 1 or 2 in there. But also there's so much to consider when looking at Bruno's game. I think he's had a really good game last week. I thought he made a number of telling contributions, brilliant passes for us. He's been such an important player. Sometimes a lot of what he does, maybe people miss. But I thought he was outstanding last week.
Okay, got to Jordan and then Kieran, please.
Hi, you were seeing Jamal Lewis back in training this week. Is there a chance he could be involved in the final 4 games, or we're looking at next season for him?
I think with Jamal, he's making good progress. Really pleased with how he's looked since coming back to training. It has been a slow, steady return. He's certainly not been rushed. Possibly he could be involved towards the end of the season. I think maybe it would depend on injuries with some of the other players within the squad. I think maybe for Jamal it would be better if it was next season, but I think if he feels good and he's done enough training, then certainly it's something we'll look at.
Thank you. Kieran?
Good morning. Regardless of which European competition you qualify for, how smart do the club have to be this summer?
In what sense?
I suppose I'd imagine even if you got in the Champions League, spending £60 million on one player might not be too easy in terms of spreading the costs around. How important is that, the way you approach the window?
Yeah, I think, of course, with all transfers and all decisions, it's making the best decisions to come out with the strongest squad possible, whether that's going for one player that's more expensive but is going to be a real game changer to the team, or whether you spread that cost and improve the squad and sort of have more depth. All those decisions we're talking about regularly and trying to come up with the right conclusion. So I don't know the answer at the minute.